Okay, so now we know Simon has a thing about Jackie Weaver because he mentioned him at the end of part 1, and we couldn't hear what Trevor was saying when he went end of part 1. Okay, so we're going to go back quickly to Simon about Jackie Weaver, and then we're going to go straight to the Gazelle. All right, here we go. Simon, take it away.
Yeah, you mentioned Jackie Weaver. We actually we met her as part of the organisation that we were feeding people with, and she donated quite a large sum of money to us. Lovely lady.
Wow. We started using her on one of our...
You've still got it on a button.
I'm just going to look for it now. Here it is. Here it is.
He's got it. You found it.
When do we plan to start?
I think we could start any moment, Chairman.
There she is. That's the woman. That's the woman herself.
Standing orders of hand for... But will you stop talking?
We used to do that to the Raven. Another where he was going on with just all of a sudden go.
Standing orders of hand for... But will you stop talking?
There you go. There you go. Anyway, go ahead. Jackie Weaver, go ahead. She gave you a lot of money.
Yeah, a reasonable sum of money. But what we found out was she became a minor celebrity, didn't she?
She did.
From that. And she used all that money and gave all that money away to various causes.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah, not many people know that.
Legend.
Okay, will you give way, sir, to the Gazelle? Yes. He's nodding. You're supposed to say yes, Simon. This is an audio program. He's nodding on the video.
Well,
sorry.
I'll pick up from that one. I mean, my experience with Labour anyway, I mean, there's a common denominator there from what Simon was saying earlier on. Where Simon actually went wrong was having a voice. To put it bluntly.
Opening your mouth.
He started asking questions. Now, my experience has been with Warrington, the councillors I've got here, because I was in the Labour Party for 30 years, unlike Simon, was in there for a long time, unfortunately. And now they hate me with a vengeance. So there's basically one or two of them out the whole lot. And there's still quite a few of the whole crew still there. And I applaud you, sir, for getting rid of that bunch in Winsford. Well done. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
Because in Warrington, you can't move them with a crowbar here. The people in Warrington just keep voting for them and voting for them and voting for them. I don't know. The tribal voting, we've got a hell of a problem with it. The nearest we ever came was in 2016 when I ran UKIP. That was the nearest we ever came to. We had about 20 seconds, something like that, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That's the nearest we ever came to removing them. And hopefully now, if I've got any input in it, we will be moving them with reform. But I can't see where that's going at the moment. That's another story.
Go ahead, Simon.
Well, yeah, Trevor, we can explain fully how we did it. You know, and we can help you if you're thinking of doing it. But it's a lot of work. Yeah, we did it over 12 weeks, but it was a very tense 12 weeks full time for 3 of us, and a lot of other people involved as well. And we had some great people involved. It wasn't all roses in the end. I've been around a lot of parish and town councillors for 35 years, and unfortunately, most of them are the same sort of breed of person. And we ended up breeding quite a few of that type that I particularly wanted to oust from Winsford Town Council. And we ended up putting some back in their place, which is a bit annoying, but you live and learn, as they say.
So it wasn't romantic. Yeah. So we couldn't give you a nickname like Mills and Boone.
Yeah, by all means. Claire and Boone. We were Bonnie and Clyde, weren't we?
Jackie and Boone. That'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Jackie and Boone. No. I think we should nickname him Daniel Boone. Okay.
Nah, I've got a
Trailblazer.
I got a better one. I didn't know he rode the motorbikes. So he could be Ken Boone. Remember him, the modern day Lone Ranger?
Yeah.
Program. That was ace. That. Yeah.
Ken Boone
didn't know that.
and Eclair. That's what we nicknamed Mandy.
She's really not going to like that, but anyway.
Oh, no, no, that's a nice name. She's a sweet name, Eclair. Or it could be Electronic Claire, because she's into good communication, isn't she? Whatever. I mean, she can have a go at me because she wanted the fire starter. Did you see what she did? Did you see that tweet she put up?
Yeah, she's the force.
The force. May the force be with you, Luke. Anyway, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to ask Simon. So you took over from Labour, and obviously that went down really well with them lot, didn't it? So I can imagine the backlash was a bit fierce. Do you want to tell us about how they took losing Winsford? Not very well here.
There was a backlash before we even got elected.
I can imagine.
They'd have been absolutely bricking themselves.
So they're very well organised with how they do their campaigns, and they get information, and they got wind that this Winsford Salt of the Earth campaign, which was standing 14 Winsford Salt of the Earth town councillors and 7 independent borough councillors, they got wind that our campaign was flying. You know, we were holding public meetings, we were holding questionnaires, we had a really strong online presence, updates. We produced 2 songs, we had funny posters, we had families out giving the image that they were enjoying seeing a potential change coming to Winsford, which they genuinely were. And it was great to see. You know, that you could see town looking for this ray of sunshine that might, you know, remove the dark clouds over Winsford that's been the forgotten town within, you know, Cheshire for a long time.
Labour wouldn't have known how to deal with that at all.
He didn't. He panicked. And, you know, you've heard from what Councillor Clare said, but Councillor Clare and I ended up like Bonnie and Clyde on a smear leaflet, not a campaign leaflet for Labour. There was no policies on that. Yeah. Sorry.
She described it as such.
Yeah.
Bonnie and
exactly
Clyde.
that. And it went through 6,500 doors. I approached them about it because the police wouldn't do anything. We had a lot of problems with the police. The 2-tier policing in Winsford, especially for, you know, the bias that they have in favour of Labour councillors. So they wouldn't do anything for us.
Was that when Dave Keane was in?
No.
Was it John Dwyer?
It was when
John Dwyer.
John Dwyer, yeah. Yeah, we went to see John Dwyer about it. We ended up in, you know, if you read what the BBC said, you think we'd come to blows. No one came to blows. The councillor that I approached was Stuart Bingham, who I ended up in court with. And he was so embarrassed about what had happened. He was like a little petulant child trying to get away. And then, you know, for someone that claims as part of his campaign to have been to several war zones as a military photographer, he couldn't even handle being asked simple questions by me and me explaining what I thought of his actions. So at court we ended up.
And the result?
So what happened with the police, we had a police officer, the sergeant, who was what's called the disclosure officer. And he failed to disclose my evidence for the first 3 court hearings. So then it was trial by process, trying to put a lot of stress and pressure on you, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't release my video at all until after the court case. So no one got to see my video evidence. The police never presented it to the Crown prosecution until the 4th court hearing, where I was cleared of the charges of assault and battery because it never happened. In fact, I demonstrated in the courtroom that the only person to actually be assaulted twice was me. One of those assaults was witnessed on my video footage.
Right, got you. And the court, they accepted that.
They accepted that, but they didn't. But they also accepted that Councillor Stuart Bingham felt at unease at being called vile and a scumbag, and for that I was fined, but I also received 50% of my costs back from the court. But again, that wasn't reported in the press.
Well, okay, so obviously to receive your court costs back, that's a form of admission, really.
It was a whole bizarre thing. I don't think I've ever come across anyone getting in trouble for calling someone slang words. They weren't even swear words. The words were vile, scumbag, and the election's over, dickhead, which was very, very muted in the courtroom. But
my God,
that was it.
If those are the hurty words, I mean, they should be in certain pubs in Liverpool, you know, and listen to some of the stories that the police tell from there, because they get far worse than that. And Statsman would know all about this. Go ahead, Stats.
I've got a few problems with this. I mean, you look at the Northwich Guardian headline, it's just the irony and the hypocrisy is staggering. Nobody above the law, say police, as councillor convicted. Really? So they're allowed to smear you, Simon, and say whatever they want, load of lies, and nothing ever happened to them. But as soon as you called someone a dickhead and a scumbag, I'm sorry, but...
Didn't call him a dickhead. I said election's over, dickhead.
Well, you know, I mean... They post leaflets smearing you, and then when they're confronted, they turn into the snowflakes and play the victim.
Yeah.
As John just said, these people wouldn't last 5 minutes in the real world. Imagine them working on on a door on the pub. They wouldn't last 5 minutes, or for the police. Wouldn't. And God help us if we ever went to war. These are the type of people who'd stir up a war and then run away and hide in a bunker and let other people fight it.
You definitely would not want these people backing you up because they'd be looking for the first exit.
I'm sorry, John, but I just don't believe them. I don't believe somebody's wife has panic attacks because the husband was called silly names. I'm sorry, I'm just not having it. They know exactly how to play the victim. Simon, they know how to play the victim, and what they do is they just look at the CPS guidance, which tells people exactly what to say to get a conviction, and that's what they do.
That's what they did.
It's pathetic.
That's what they worked through with the police. And with regards to his wife saying that, she's a nice lady, and on the pre-count before the election, I forgot the term it's called. What's it called? Anyway, there's the night before the election, you go down there and it's like a pre-count. And at 2:30 in the morning, his wife came. The verification, thank you, Trevor. At the verification, his wife came over to Councillor Clare and I, and we were sat in a corridor having a brew at 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. And she came over and she apologised. She said for her part in it and said that she'd asked them not to do it. They shouldn't have done what they did. It was uncalled for. And I accepted her apology and shook her hand. And she was even worried about shaking my hand. She was that influenced. This isn't a woman who was having panic attacks. I also met her at the mayor's presentation when then Councillor Ernie Welch got he became the mayor and got what's it called? Signed in as the mayor, or whatever what that's called, the mayor's election process.
Sworn in, I think, is it?
Sworn in, yeah. She said hello then and several other times. That was totally done for the courtroom.
Yeah.
But go back a year and a half, 2 years. When Dan Ford and I were at that meeting where we were asking for some funding from the town council, we were talking to a couple of councillors in Wyvern House when 5 other councillors came past. Stuart Bingham was one, Nathan Pardo was one. And we said, even though the meeting hadn't gone our way, we just went, good night to everyone. Councillor Pardo went to the police the next day and said that he felt threatened that I'd said good night. And I had to go to the police station again.
Oh my God.
So they've actually arrested me, in theory now. I think it's 8 times in 2.5 years.
That's strange. So you were cleared of assault because that's what you were accused of first.
Battery and assault was cleared of, yeah.
You were cleared of that, but is there a law for hurty words like that, for calling somebody a name?
Yeah. If someone has the gall to stand up in a courtroom and lie and say that they felt a certain way because those words were said, they felt their life was in danger, they genuinely believe that and say it in court. Bear in mind, this is a man that's been to 5 war zones, right? If you watch my video, which I'm quite happy to give you, and you can put it up on any website you want, it's not a man that was frightened at all. It was a man that was embarrassed for being there.
And this man's name is what, again?
His name is Councillor Stuart Bingham.
And he's a Labour councillor?
He's a current Labour Cheshire West councillor and town councillor. And worse than that, after I was elected, Councillor Stuart Bingham then gets made the chairman of the Winsford Regeneration Working Group. And I'm invited to those meetings. But then it dawned on them further down the line that wasn't doing them any good, having me at meetings, because I could then say in a courtroom, oh, I've met him several times and we've had no issues and no words.
Yeah. So
they stopped the meetings and then removed me from the meetings because that wasn't benefit to them either.
And where was the case heard?
The case was 4 court hearings.
Yeah, but where was it heard?
It was heard, I think 3 of them were at Crewe and 1 was at Chester. The final hearing was it through?
But do you know, I just find that whole thing strange because I'll be honest with you, I've heard worse in the House of Lords. I mean, I've heard worse, for serious. And if there was such a thing as going to court for words of that nature, then there would be court hearings at the Houses of Parliament on a regular basis because they do not hold back at all.
Angela Rayner said to the Conservative Party, "You're all scumbags in the House of Commons."
Yeah,
She
but
used the same terms I use.
Yeah, but they have, whilst they're in the chamber, they have absolute privilege. So where were you when this happened?
So that's a good point you're raising because during the campaign, they're no longer councillors and they were trying to claim the protection of, So they were candidates the same as me and the police wouldn't listen to anything we said was happening to us, but only jumped on the side of them regarding what they perceived. I think they described us as 5 people in hoodies. That just wasn't the case at all.
I'll tell you something now. We had, when we were standing for UKIP, we had a lot of threats. And Steve had it bad. Trevor, you had a few of them as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I've had quite a few. I had one just recently, actually.
Well, so we just sort of took it in its stride. We didn't sit there and look at them. We laughed, at these things. But it got to a point whereby Steve was threatened to be firebombed through his letterbox. And the police told him that he had to do something with his letterbox. I was getting sort of nose to nose threats, from certain Labour people. And all I did was just basically, I threatened certain candidates. I was just going to put them in court. And all of a sudden, because if you put somebody in court, it means that they can't stand. The Labour Party actually suspend them until after court action.
We just didn't have a timescale for that, Jonathan. We thought we'd try and ride it out, but that didn't work either. But I got lots of threats, lots of phone calls, my house damaged, my car's damaged. I got my pets poisoned. It just went on, threats in the street. It just went on and on and on.
And these are all things that you couldn't really prove.
Reported them all. They've all been reported.
Yeah. Okay.
And the police did nothing. And it's ongoing still. A lot of it's ongoing. But I believe that, these particular councillors, what their tactic became was if they could smear us, maybe remove us.
Yeah.
Then they could, in the future, try and remove me as a councillor. So that's why they dragged this court case out for as long as he did, was to try and maybe wear me down or find a way to remove me, but it didn't work. But, the upshot was the townsfolk voted them out. And because of the behaviour, I believe, because of the behaviour of these particular councillors, they didn't do themselves any favour. And then it became very apparent that Councillor Pardo was not in the running to become the candidate for the Mid-Cheshire candidate for the general election this year. And that went to Andrew Cooper. Yeah. So he's completely out of favour from what I see. And I think his political career it was on the up. It's certainly plateaued and on the way down now from what I've seen.
Well, the other thing is, and I'm going to give way to both Statsman and to the Gazelle, the thing about these things is what you realistically should do if somebody is actually threatening legal against you. If they keep on threatening it, that is, in actual fact, that's against the law in itself. If they're going to do something, they have to get on with it. You should actually put it onto them and say, well, come on, then let's go. Do it. Serve me with a writ. Get it moving. Let's get going. Because then you actually take them out of the game as well. The timescales were so short. That wasn't practical. Okay.
They weren't actually accused us of anything at the time. We were basically, they were just trying to smear us to
get you out of the way.
Reduce the number of votes we got. And I think it was sort of, they were a bit carefree about it. We'll deal with the consequences later, and I think they got the go ahead from Labour HQ. We're in trouble in Winsford, do whatever it takes to stop this successful campaign. But it backfired, and they lost 17 seats out of the 22.
Yeah, got it.
And the rest of the country were doing really well, weren't they?
Yeah.
But not here. And that was after 49 years of Labour rule.
Okay. Statsman, go ahead. And then Gazelle.
Yeah, I've seen this pattern so many times before. Many people have attempted to confront journalists, MPs, TV presenters. Now, bearing in mind, all these people sit in their little offices in their studios and they'll destroy people's reputations at the drop of a hat. But when confronted, they all do the same thing, don't they? And they turn into the victim.
Yeah.
They turn into the victim. As I said before, they know exactly how to work the guidance, the CPS and everything to get a conviction. It's always alarmed and distressed. They just literally quote it. But the thing here is, they're doing this to retain power. This is all about power. This isn't for the good of the community. Because I'm not being funny. I mean, Winsford has got a couple of areas that are the most deprived in Cheshire. Back in 2022, Blacon that was where one of our previous fellow podcast members lives. Wolverham, that's where John lives. Mm-hmm. Little Sutton North and East, where I live. Ellesmere Port's got another 2. So something tells me they should be busy trying to fix this, not trying to crucify the people who are raising these issues in the first place.
Well, that's it.
As you said,
they
why
always
are these
do it,
people
Mark.
elected? And they're elected because the same group of people are voting them in. And they're not using logic and reason and using their brains to make a choice on what to vote for. It's tribal. It's, my granddad did it, and I've always been Labour. People just need to start thinking for themselves because this is horrendous.
Can we move on to the Gazelle? But let's just say that Labour only really get in with a small core vote because nobody else bothers to come out. That's what happens. Go ahead, Gazelle.
Yeah, good few points there. I mean, I'm just endorsing exactly what Mark said. Labour's got it off to a T, haven't they?
Yeah.
I had Kathy Mitchell. I don't know the story, but she's the deputy leader. And she was running a story that's been going on for a while that she's received death threats. She's concerned for her life. And nobody could find any substance anywhere to back it up or anything. Now, they've got everything off to a T, haven't they? They've got the campaign off to a T. They know exactly, because they've been in for so long, like Simon said, they've been in for donkey's years. And they've got the hurty words off to a T. And as you said earlier, Jonathan, that I've been called all sorts, but we just laugh and we just brush it off. We shouldn't do that.
No, we should actually say something.
We should actually play them at their game.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever it comes to me, I normally turn around and say, well, if you're going to do something, get on with it. Otherwise, because it gives me then a chance to counter sue. That's all I look for, right? To counter sue. As soon as I get that in, that's when I start to move and I get council's opinion and all the rest of the stuff before you actually, move forward with something, because it gets quite involved. I mean, a lot of the time they're hot air. That's all they are. They're hot air and they're trying to frighten you into sort of persuading you to go away. But if they know that you're not going to go away, that's more of a problem. And if they know that you're not going to go away and you're willing to pay for legal, that's a different thing, and get the right kind of legal. Anyway, Simon, you wanted a quick word, and then Mark.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, we complained to the returning officer, the chief exec. We complained to the Electoral Commission. We complained to the police. We provided evidence. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
All the cases were closed. They're actually now reopened, or we're told they're reopened. But we had a history of two-tier policing building up to this whole campaign, where I'd met with the sergeant that I'm referring to in Winsford and said, look, when this campaign starts, it's going to get really dirty. We know Labour are going to get dirty. And are you going to treat us the same as you treat them? We had assurances we would. It never happened. And the police just went along with whatever Labour said, played their game.
What you need to do, and I say this from experience, is you need to be able to nail the point that you can put the police or any particular policeman on a misconduct in a public office, or even just malfeasance, whatever it is. Once you do that, that casts a different light on everything and their attitude. And I know I've done that because I had a guy in London.
Do that.
Sorry?
We did do that. We did do that.
Did it work?
So
did you get the investigation?
We got a promise of an investigation, yeah. And we got that in writing in an email, and we recorded that interview with two very senior officers. And we're still working through that process.
Are you? Well, for me, I got needled by a guy in London, because I'm in the music industry. And I got needled by a guy in London, and he had a lot of clout. and I nailed 2 police officers who basically allowed this guy to get away with, I think it was nearly £647,000, and they didn't want to hear any other evidence. That's it. They didn't want to hear anything else. They just wanted to nail this guy, get him put in prison. And what I did was I actually forced a situation. I nailed it with some good legal advice and a little bit of help. And I got these 2 officers put on a misconduct in the public office, and they were shitting themselves. And I got everything that I needed to know about what went on, who did this, who did that. And this guy got 3.5 years in prison. I wanted to put him away for another 2. I wanted to see if I get another 2, because he actually got away with the money. He got away with it. And I don't know anybody who could be put in prison. He literally did 2.5 years for fraud for 650,000. But even the police officers believe that this guy got away with nearly 2.5 million. And I wanted to get him put away for longer. And it was just a bad situation. Anyway, sorry, Simon, you were going to give a quick one and then stats?
Well, I mean, the background to all of it is money, because, you know, before I became a councillor, I was raising issues of fraudulent activity that several councillors were involved with.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so you never wanted me to become a councillor, and that was partly the reason why I was banned from talking on communicating with the town council for 2 6-month stints, was because the issues I was raising on behalf of some residents was financial. And since becoming elected as a
financial peculiarities.
Yes, and then since being elected, I've demonstrated that I'm right about some other financial issues that certain councillors are involved with, and that's been ignored.
Okay, well, on that one, I think we're going to go to a part 3, and we're going to say end of part 2. Trevor, go on. Say end of part 2, Trevor.
Go on.
End of part 2. We've got another one.
Looks that way.
It's going on. It's going on. Hey, don't blame me. Blame stats. Right? This is the man that's been doing so much research on different things, and he wants to get us all into trouble, and he wants to get us all into court, and he wants to get us put away while Simon goes away to Barbados. Isn't that right, Simon?
Right. That's not right. Well, carry on, man.
You better stay.